So tonight we went to the theater and we saw Werewolves starring Frank Grillo. Now this is brought to us by director Stephen C. Miller, who has directed quite a few films that I've seen. Most recently, I think, was that like I don't think you watched this with me. It's a movie called Margot, and it's the like smart house that's a killer.
Oh,
I can't remember if you
no, but
watched
I
that with me
remember
or not.
you.
It has like a,
I don't think I
if I
watched it with
remember
you.
correctly, that's the one that has like a really good opening kill, and then the
That's
rest of
what
the
you had
movie I
said.
didn't
Yes,
like.
that's what I thought you had said, is that
Um,
there's something good in it.
he
But
also did the Silent Night remake something like it was kind of
mm,
nothing like the original, so I don't know if I'd call it a remake, more of like part six of the film franchise. Anyways, moving on. So this is about a super moon that turns there's like a latent gene in humans that when the supermoon comes out, we find out that we're actually werewolves inside, and like a billion people die. And
yeah,
then next year is coming, and they're trying to prevent against it. And Frank Grillo and some other people are scientists, the most jacked scientist I've ever seen in my life.
yeah.
Outside of Dolph Lundgren, who's like a literal fucking scientist in real life.
Mm.
But yeah, they're trying to prevent it. They're trying to create a cure, and they create like moon spray, like moon screen is what they call it, so you can spray it on your body and it lasts like an hour, so you can like go out in the moonlight and
Yeah.
not turn into a werewolf during that time. There's some weird stuff with this when it comes to that. We'll get into it here in a second, but yeah, essentially he's trying to cure it, and he also has a sister-in-law whose husband died during the first year, and now he like wants to protect them, but he wants to protect them by curing it. And then once he, things go wrong, he's like, I got to get to them to
Yeah.
save them.
Yeah.
The movie has this like massive idea, right? This kind of reminds me of when the Spear brothers made the movie Daybreakers,
Mm.
where everyone on Earth was like a vampire now, and they were having a problem with blood because there was like not many humans left, and so they were like harvesting them, like the Matrix, where they were like putting them in these like things and taking their blood from them, and then like the whole world was like vampires. So it's like a big idea like that, which I'm into. Like usually werewolf movies are very self-contained and small because of budget issues. And so when I saw this, I was like, oh, this could be really cool. I'm a big fan of werewolves. I'm a big fan of action movies, like, and I also like Frank Grillo a whole bunch. So I was definitely the target audience for this. This movie, okay, I'll say something positive to start. I love the werewolves in this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it delivered on that part of it. I mean, the movie's called Werewolves, and I thought this was definitely one of the best looking werewolves, in film that I've seen. I thought the werewolves. Now, the transformations are all CG, and those look not awesome.
Yeah.
But everything when a werewolf's a werewolf is all practical for the most part. I mean, there's a couple scenes where maybe they're running and there's some CGI stuff and whatever, but whenever we see the werewolves up close and when they're attacking people and whatever, they're always practical, and I thought they looked fucking awesome. I really dug the werewolves in this. This is some of the best werewolf practicals I've seen.
Mm.
So big props to them for putting probably the majority of the budget into the werewolves, and there's a lot of them. Like we see quite a few of them. The film is like, it tries to be so big, right? This is supposed to be a global thing, but still somehow the film feels so small. Mostly because we are dealing with a very limited budget that I think they put towards all the werewolf costumes and werewolf practicals and effects and whatever. And so we get them like running down a street. We get the mother and a daughter in a house, and then maybe like a couple stores that they make their way into. And that's like the location, and then like the facility where they're trying to cure it,
Yeah.
and that's like your locations, right? So it felt like the first Purge movie in that way. Funny that Frank Grillo's in it, but it felt like it, like in that context of like they make this they make this countrywide purge, and then you're just stuck in a house the whole movie, and you're like, I want to see, I want to see the purge, and you get to see that in the sequels. But in this one, it's so small scale with such a massive, like, I guess what I'm getting at is that while certain scenes, because they're out in the streets with some werewolves, and there's people fighting them, outside of maybe a couple little scenes like that, this felt like a pretty typical werewolf film
Mm.
where it's mostly just like a woman and a kid in her house defending themselves against a werewolf or a couple werewolves outside, and then he's trying to get to them to save them from the werewolf. It didn't feel like, the whole country was under siege, and we were seeing people being ripped apart right and left in the streets. It was like pandemonium. Like, that's what I was hoping for here. But this thing was so limited by its budget, and it's super, super fucking corny.
Yeah, I think the werewolves looked cool, but I hated the transformations. There's no character development. I think the world building is very
Zero.
poor. There's like some people that we meet at one point in the film that like just it feels so kind of unnecessary to throw them into it, but it's an attempt to do some world building. Um, and I think all the action sequences were like actually pretty lame. I didn't find them that exciting, and yeah, overall, like I did not like the film. It is really corny too. Like there's a lot of one-liners with like dog puns, which like in the right context,
Yeah,
in like
that could be fun.
it could be endearing
Mm-hmm.
and cute, but it just
If
came
if
across
Arnold
like,
was saying
yeah,
it.
it just kind of came across like I don't know. I just didn't really like it. I didn't dig it that much. I also have questions about the werewolves themselves
Yeah,
because like some of the werewolves, like when they transform, they have like bits of their clothing still on them to give them like character,
character.
but I also don't really understand how some of that clothing stays on. And like, there's even one werewolf that has like a dyed mohawk that I'm
Yeah.
like, how did his hair stay dyed? So there's like some silly stuff like that. Like, on one hand, it's kind of cool to see like werewolves, like different style werewolves, but
Yeah.
like, as far as explaining how that happens, it's just
I
you
don't
can't
care.
really explain it.
I don't care about that
And
stuff,
then
but yeah.
yeah, my like biggest gripe, which like we talked about a little bit when we were like driving home from the theater, is that I feel like the transformation stuff is just the lamest part. And for me, with every werewolf movie and like werewolf stories, I think that the transformation is one of the most important parts of that genre
Yeah.
subgenre.
Yeah.
Like it's a body horror subgenre in essence, where you're watching somebody transform into a monster, into an animal, and obviously all the greats, like when you see the practicals of people turning into a werewolf and just how painful and excruciating and just crazy it can look.
Yeah.
That was definitely missing from this film. There's a little bit of, as you said, like some CGI transformations in the beginning, and then kind of throughout the film that just becomes less of a thing, and people turn in like 1 second, and like we don't see any actual transformation happening. So that's like a big no for me with werewolf films. If you're gonna go with the like full on werewolf, like we've definitely watched films where the idea of the werewolf is more of a metaphor and like it's
Yeah.
hinted at, and that's kind of a different scenario. But with these, when you have like the full like bipedal big wolf men, I do think that that's a, like I said, just a really important part. So yeah, I mean it's not like it's a bad film. um
Yes.
it's not like a horrible film, but it's pretty
It's
close.
close.
I also really didn't like the dialogue for Frank Grillo's his character's like
Sister.
sister-in-law.
Yeah.
I really did not like her dialogue that she had. There's
Agreed.
there's a lot of time of her just like
yelling at the
yelling at the
werewolves.
werewolves and like trying to be like hoorah, like I
Yeah.
got this, and it just for me did not work whatsoever.
No.
So I feel like that's, yeah, that's a shame. But
Well,
yeah.
they tried to turn her into a badass, and it never works because she's never a badass. Like,
No, there's
she
never
just
any
yells.
moments of, yeah, she just yells.
She
There's
just yells at them, and I think she believes that there's somebody still inside. But the werewolves continue to keep trying to get into her house. Now they fortified it, and people are prepared for this, like the purge. And there's people who go out and they're like wolf hunters, and
yeah,
they want to take them down. And then there's people like that are in their house. Now these werewolves seem like they're specifically attacking her and not
right.
just like randomly going anywhere.
Yeah.
Like there's some vendetta against
Yeah,
her,
there's like
which
one
that doesn't
specific
seem to make
werewolf.
sense to me.
Right.
Since the film pretty explicitly shows that they don't really have control much.
That's, yeah.
They do kind of play around with it for like a minute, but then they get away from that. But I just think the film is a failure because of so there's so many reasons, to be honest, but the film is like moving at breakneck speed, and that might work for some people. People who are like, I don't care about characters, I don't care about plot, I don't, because there's like a framework of a plot, like there's a concept, and then it's just go go go, but it's not go 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 in a fun way. Like, I've watched movies that are go 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 that never stop, they're relentless, that I love, that I have a great time with, that start, like frenetic and frantic and
Oh,
chaotic, and I love that type of shit. So, like, as I said, I'm like totally the target audience for a movie like this, but I never connected to anything. I never cared if he got to her and saved her and the
no,
kid.
it's
The relationship between the mom and the
yeah.
kid was like whatever
It's
to
all
me.
half-assed, and yeah, like you were saying, like the editing is just god awful. Like there's so many times where they're like running, and then all of a sudden they're like in a new place. Like it's just, it doesn't work as far as action sequences go. And you
No.
reminded me that there was also another aspect of this film that I really hated, is that there is a
Oh yeah,
lot of strobe
strobe
lights
lighting.
like throughout the film, whether
Yeah.
it's from like faulty lighting from whatever, like things, hitting like electrical panels,
Yeah.
or from gunfire, and I hate that so much. I think it's such a lazy way to like visually show chaos. And it hurts my eyes and it hurts my head, and I just don't like it. So that's always like a huge knock for me. Like I can understand when there's like a bit of it in there, but when there was so much throughout the whole film where I constantly had to keep like closing my eyes, shielding my eyes from it, that's, yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, it's a really lame film that has great werewolves in it. So it's a massive letdown, super shame for me, because this movie could be so awesome. I would have much rather they took what they had, seen these awesome werewolves, brought it, stripped it down, made it smaller scale, and focused on an actual like family trying to
Hmm.
survive werewolves attacking their house, and just focus on that, trying to do the global thing, and try to make it unique. I like the swing, but if you can't deliver on it, you need to work within the confines of your limitations, right? And you need to know what they are. And with this, I just don't think that the director had a grasp on what he was trying to achieve here. It feels like a very small scale thing that's trying so hard to be big.
Yeah.
And because of it, it just hurts the film. And
Yeah.
it never takes any time to make you care. It never takes any time to make you invested, to have fun that you're actually like, entertained by. I never felt entertained. There was multiple moments where I was like, oh, that werewolf looks awesome. There's also like almost no gore in the film. The kills are all lame and unmemorable. So yeah, just a super disappointment. I really, really went into this thinking this was going to be like a big fun film for the year. This was going
Yeah.
to be like a big stupid, crazy, insane werewolf film that I was going to be like, oh man, you just got to turn off your brain and roll with it and have fun. And I tried, and I couldn't turn off my brain enough.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm going to game with my brother. That's that. We'll see you in the comments. Bye.
Bye.